There I go. All right, so today I'm going to teach you how to see saddles as surfaces and connectors. Um, so this is just going to be the basics. We're going to go over just a ton of stuff. It's going to be more than you can possibly digest at one time. And all I want you to get out of this is sort of a 10,000 foot view of the elements of saddle fitting, saddle design, and everything that goes into the saddle. So to do that, we are going to ask the 10 questions the rider needs to have answers to before they buy a saddle. So the first question is your horse ready to be fit? Surprisingly, this one is very controversial in the saddle world. I know other saddle makers like myself believe that we should take that into account. And somebody's got their mic on. Let me see. And those of us saddle makers that believe we should take that into account, we actually get threatened by other saddle makers physically because we just say that. So we need to talk about that. Our next thing is, where do you want to sit? And when somebody comes to me for saddle fitting and I ask them that, everybody's always a little surprised. But where you want to sit is the most fundamental question that has to be answered before we start fitting a saddle. Okay. Then the next question is, how do you want to sit? You have to have some idea how you want to sit, because that is going to tell me as a saddle maker how I need to align all the surfaces. Okay. Then these next three are all kind of combined together, and that is, what is your horse's orientation? What is the saddle's orientation? And what seat orientation do you want? What most of you have heard this as is gullet width. But I always tell people gullet width is what people that don't know what they're talking about talk about to make it sound like they know what they're talking about. Gullet width is one element of orientation. And orientation is really it's the main thing on saddle fit. So we need to talk about that. Then the next thing we need to know is, which pressure distribution do you want? As saddle makers, we use more than one pressure distribution. So you need to know which pressure distribution was used in the saddle that you're looking at and what the consequences of those are. Then our next thing is, what rigging configuration do you want? So this is pretty straightforward. We're going to look at 3 different rigging configurations. Then, what rigging position do you want? Where do you want the cinches to be? Or cinch, okay? And then the last thing we're going to ask is, where do you want your stirrup to hang? And that's pretty much what you need to have a handle on when you're looking at a saddle. Okay, so saddles are made up of surfaces. So we have 6 surfaces. We have a pelvic surface for your seat. We have a thigh surface, a foot surface, and a buttock surface. Now, not all saddles are going to have all these surfaces because there's different ways of riding, but we need to understand which each one is. And then the horse has a back surface and a belly surface. All right, so here's what we end up with. We end up with a bunch of surfaces: buttock surface, pelvic surface, thigh surface, foot surface for the rider. Then we have the belly surface and back surface for the horse. Now those surfaces have to be connected. And we do that with arches, we do that with the rigging, and we do that with the stirrup leathers. Pretty straightforward, but it starts getting a little more complicated when you look a little closer. Okay, we have a right and a left. So we have those 6 surfaces, but we have those surfaces on the right and we have them on the left. So now we're at 12 surfaces. And each surface has a mate. So we end up with 24 different surfaces that we're looking at in regard to fitting a saddle. And you can have a problem on any one of those surfaces, whether it's on the horse, whether it's on the saddle, or whether it's on the human. So we got to get a handle on that. Now, this is the real hard part about saddle fitting. And that is we have a whole bunch of different ways that people ride. We have a bunch of different social environments that they ride in. So, for instance, the dressage group is a social environment, barrel racers are another social environment, and they all have an idea of how they need to ride within that discipline. And then on the other side, we have the biomechanical reality. And the biomechanical reality and the social environment aren't always in accord with each other. So the degree that you can get a saddle to fit is the degree to which the biomechanical reality and the social environment are overlapping. Sometimes they're not even touching. So this is really important. And, I'm probably going to tell you a million times when you start asking questions that you're talking about the social environment, not the biomechanical reality. So just think about that. And I know you've all had to deal with this.